Serious? People who married people with disabilities, how do you feel about your decision and how does it affect your life? My wife is profoundly deaf, and when I read the title of this post I thought to myself it must be hard to live with someone who has a disability. I guess if you are really connected to someone, they kinda aren't disabled. If it counts, I married her before she was disabled. Once I was deeply in love, the disabilities that developed didn't even factor in. Of course it affected my life in many negative ways, but looking back, I wouldn't trade a moment. I wish she was still here for me to wipe her butt and push a wheelchair. This is heartbreaking and fully manages to show just how much love you have for her. Thank you for loving her. My wife is now in a wheelchair. Last week we ran a half marathon together. In August we're planning our first triathlon. Paradoxically, her being in a wheelchair has given us a mutual activity that we never had beforehand. Endurance sport was something I used to do on my own. Now it's a shared activity. That sounds perfect, and a ton of fun. My wife has one leg and I have moderate hearing loss. It made parenting an infant interesting. We'd be sleeping, the boy would cry, she'd hear him, and wake me up to go get him so she wouldn't have to put in her leg. I get to pull out my hearing aids when I don't want to hear anything. She gets to take off her leg when she doesn't want to do anything. It's great. Although, at some point the kid is gonna be old enough to realize that he can steal mom's leg and your hearing aids. My fiancée is deaf in one ear. Sometimes I whisper nonsense to see if she truly is deaf. It's been 3 years but I'm starting to think she's telling the truth. For me it never even came up as a thought. I married my wife when they allowed her out of hospital between chemo treatments. Incurable cancer. The medication that kept cancer away slowly caused debilitating side effects. As time went on she could do less and I did more, but I never really felt like it was an issue, even when she ended up in a wheelchair. 20 years later she has a complete renal failure and no chance of a kidney transplant due to medication keeping cancer away. The lounge is now her bedroom because stairs even with a lift are impossible, and I have the entire upstairs as my man cave bedroom. I think if love is involved, I mean true love, not just spoken words, then it does not matter at all. I now do 99% of everything from finances, cooking and laundry. My entire day is planned around her home dialysis and making sure the house is equal to or better than hospital clean. You just adapt, it's not a conscious choice you make. If they are your other half, oh I couldn't do that, or you must be an angel. It is not a decision you make, you just do. My other half has cystic fibrosis. I knew going in that this was a chronic disease that would have ups and downs. We've been together for 4 years. The last year has had more downs than ups. Breathing is hard, and there are many things she can't do now that we once enjoyed together. It wasn't really an issue though because my oldest child also is disabled, so I came in fairly mentally prepared for the changes and such that it brings. We are currently preparing for a double lung transplant. It has difficulties. There are days when you feel so useless because you just want this person you love to feel better and you can't really help them do that. I have a strong support system and we talk about what's going on regularly. I wouldn't change anything though. She's the person I most want to see life with. We just have to see it in different ways than couples without the health issues. To anyone considering a relationship with a disabled person, you have to be understanding of their limitations without taking away their agency. They'll let you know what is and is not on the table. Understand that many things you have to put yourself in the mindset of this isn't about me. Do your best. Communicate honestly. Don't view things in the we can't do this mindset and you'll be just fine. My wife was born with Fabry disease, but we didn't realize that's what it was until our oldest son was diagnosed with it too. Getting a diagnosis helped to make our relationship better. I thought she was over exaggerating the amount of pain she was in and how tired she was all the time. Now that we have a teenager who falls asleep eating dinner after baseball practice, I feel guilty for all those years of thinking she could just pull through it. There are some things she can't do that I have to take over for. That's fine though. We all have our strengths and weaknesses. My husband is deaf. With hearing aids he is able to hear okay. Honestly, I kind of forget about it unless we are in social situations and he struggles to follow a conversation. The one thing which was quite difficult was when we had our son. He wouldn't hear him overnight and I'd be jealous of his uninterrupted sleep, so would just scowl at him peacefully sleeping at night. Also, I can't watch TV without subtitles now, even if he's not here. Married life is good. Currently engaged and having our wedding soon. My fiance has leukemia. I'm sticking by my decision because I truly love him. It doesn't affect my life in a bad way. There's not much he can do, so I pick up what I can. If you truly love someone, nothing should come in between that. I like to believe it's also made our relationship a lot stronger and both of us stronger as individuals. Married a woman who developed cancer, if that counts. She was 32 and severely disabled for 3 years. I had accepted the fact I would struggle with money and bills from then on and would have to do everything. Was hard, but you gotta do it. She was then cured, cheated on me, then we divorced. I'm now clawing my way out of all the debt she left me with. Wow, that's not how I thought that story would go. I am so sorry and I hope you're okay. My wife has ankylosing spondylitis, which is where your spine is inflamed to the point where it slowly starts to fuse together. At her young age, 22, this has led to innumerable hospital visits and her cold becoming a constant struggle of pain and finding comfort. Medicine is normally very helpful, but due to some issues with insurance, I'm military, she's not currently getting treatment. This has led to multiple other issues, arthritis, allergy issues, eczema, etc., that has added to the daily struggles. Her condition is slowly getting worse. She normally sleeps around 12-16 hours a day, as her disability renders her all but unable to do most physical jobs. She took up virtual assisting, which was nice but eventually unsustainable. But through smart choices and good old-fashioned hard work, we've managed to remain afloat and be happy despite our current struggles. We're still a long way from living comfortably, but what matters in life is that you all hold on to each other in the times of need, and that you're present in some way when the pain comes. That's what love and marriage, in our opinion, is. Being there for the other no matter what is happening, and doing everything you can to support and lift up each other. Be there when you're needed, and love each other madly. The fact that you're in the military and can't afford medical care is freaking shameful for our country. My wife has dystonia and can't walk, and honestly it affects my life a lot. She can't have a job, can't clean, or do a lot, but she does little things for me that melt my heart. I have never regretted my decision. I love her more and more every day. I'm so lucky to have her. Been married to my hubby for over 10 years. 3 years ago he came down with a life-threatening blood clotting disorder with a side of bone cancer to boot. We spent over a year just trying to find the right specialists who could figure out what was wrong with him and treat him without making things worse. He lost his job, a lot of his memory, his ability to drive. He's now hypersensitive to noise, and can't eat any animal protein or salt or bread. I am the sole money earner now because we're still waiting for the government to make up its mind about whether or not he's disabled. Money's been tight and I went from working and housework and kids to that plus managing the finances, doing all the driving and managing the scheduling of doctor's appointments with 6 different specialists. I wouldn't change it for the world. Before I was an introvert and shy. When he got sick I had to step up and take care of things, and I'm 300 times stronger a person than I ever imagined I could be. We have a strong support system with our family and that helped tremendously. But really we just had to become closer to make it work. He has to be open and honest about how he's feeling both mentally and physically so I can help him make decisions about medication and when to call the doctor. I'm more open about when I'm getting to a breaking point so we can schedule some downtime for me. We communicate with more honesty and straightforwardness than we did before. He asks me where I want to eat and I name a restaurant. No more "oh, I don't know," wherever, if you catch my drift. Even though the last 3 years have been a special level of heck, we both agree that we would still make the same decisions over again and regret nothing. The part of him communicating more about how he feels mentally and physically in order to figure out what kind of help to give him really touched me. Thank you for that. I'm going to keep that in mind. My wife is blind, 100%, no vision at all. It was the best decision of my life. I love her very much, and made sure I was okay with all the extra responsibilities I would have to take up with marrying her. I have to do most of the cooking and taking care of the toddler, but that's no problem for me. I love cooking, and little one is great. Chivalrous things that most people don't do these days are second nature to me, such as holding the car door open for her to get in, or holding her hand while out and about, which is both required for her to know where to go, and romantic. At least she won't tell that you are ugly. Kidding. Good on you for being a good husband. My wife is physically disabled from a very bad stroke about a decade ago which messed up the use of her right side. This occurred a few years before we met, so I've only ever known her while she's handicapped. She tries to do simple things on her own but asks me often for help with many tasks, sometimes several times a day. It doesn't bother me really and I know she is appreciative. I'm nearly deaf and have speech issues, so I can sympathize in my own way and don't hold it against her. She smiles every time I look at her and seeing her as the first person every morning when I wake up makes it worthwhile. As for how it affected my life, I've been very content and happy since getting together with her. She's done a lot for me all the same. When we were dating though, a few of my close friends were all like, dude, she's not worth being with. You'd be like a maid cause she's in a wheelchair. Yay. I don't talk to them anymore. I learned what kind of people those jerks were back then. My husband is 100% disabled through the VA and now suffers from PTSD, depression and chronic pain. He's on a ton of meds and I can't count on him for very much. Whatever I can count on a 7-year-old to do is what I can depend on him for. I hate it and I hate myself for not being more understanding and just being more for him. I didn't imagine my life like this. I wanted a best friend to talk to do things with and go out and experience the world. Instead I am stuck alone taking care of my toddler and feeling alone and having no one to depend on. It's lonely. I imagined my life would be filled with laughter, silly banter and late night conversations. Instead I'm alone while he passes out from pills in the guest room. My husband was originally diagnosed with major depressive disorder and severe anxiety a few years into our marriage. He was recently re-diagnosed with bipolar disorder. We have been through plenty of bad times, losing jobs, our house flooding, several suicide attempts and hospitalizations, me having to call the cops on him one night because he threatened suicide, but barricaded himself in a room with a weapon and screamed at the cops to shoot him. It's been a lot. I won't lie and say that it hasn't made me think of leaving occasionally. Life would be so easy, but he is my best friend and I absolutely adore him. He is so much more than his diagnosis and those bad times. There is so much more that is good. The hard times are hard, and I do have to pick up a lot of the slack. But I have a great job and I can do it. I can hold us together when he can't. But the few times I do crack and have a little pity party for myself, he is the one to take care of it. It just works. My husband has severe anxiety and agoraphobia to the point where he is considered disabled by the state. I love my husband but the extent of difficulties in our life is hard. He cannot see past his anxiety often and can be incredibly selfish while not returning the favor really ever. I take the baby everywhere alone. I had to have her alone at the hospital. I have never even spent a night alone with my husband. He cannot seem to get hired in a work from home job and he regresses so often he tries to keep me and the baby from leaving the house as well. I have to wait for him to lay down and fall asleep before I can sneak out for errands. It is honestly like having another child. He isn't a partner in our marriage or in parenting. It's exhausting. I'm so tired. I'm so frustrated. It is so hard all the time and I cry a lot at night. That being said, my husband is not a bad man. He does try his hardest every day to do the things he can't. We practice exposure therapy. We try to get to doctor apps. We research often and try new things. I try to be patient and kind and loving. People congratulate me and compliment me on my patience. I'm not a son. Sometimes I just want to tell him to just suffer through it for us. I suffer through so much on his behalf and I feel resentful sometimes about it. Is it fair? No, but I have needs too that have never been met. All in all, I love him dearly but every single day is a struggle and there is always something new keeping us down. Agoraphobia isn't widely understood, believed, or accepted. My husband can't get to treatment so he struggles to get better. Medicare won't pay for doctor on demand type therapies so we pay out of pocket when we can. I just hope this isn't our life forever. 4 years ago I married my partner 3 weeks after intense chemo from testicular cancer that metastasized into his brain, lungs, stomach and lymph system. He is on permanent disability due to tumors in his spine and brain that were not treatable through chemo. He suffers from memory issues, chemo fatigue, depression and epilepsy from the brain surgeries. It's tough. I love him but it's tough. It can honestly be frustrating living paycheck to paycheck and being the main breadwinner. You never have the financial flexibility to just leave a job even if you hate it. You end up doing double the amount of work because you work a full-time job and then are caregiver at home. Dead bedroom was an issue for over 2 years but is slowly getting better. If he wasn't my soulmate I would have walked years ago, but he is, so here I am. There are more good days than bad, but there's a lot of harsh realities people don't talk about. My wife got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis shortly after we got engaged. There was never even a thought of changing the wedding plans. We'd been together for over 6 years at that point. We got married 11 years ago now. I don't regret the decision at all, but I'd be lying if I said it was easy. To watch the woman I love deteriorate is hard and is no doubt contributing to the depression I'm trying to rid myself of. She had to give up work shortly after our daughter was born as she had a big relapse. Being the sole earner sure is stressful, especially with a child to provide for. It affects every day our lives, from me having to work from home to cook meals for her and our daughter to making holidays and travel, a real effort in planning and everything in between. I've never really talked to anyone about it before. I always feel a bit guilty because yes, she's disabled and yes, things are hard a lot of the time, but there are people out there that have it worse than us. My husband was diagnosed with MS 2 years ago. He just learned to walk again after being in a wheelchair for a year, but still has no feeling in his hands or below the waist. I work full time to support us and provide the majority of care for our 4-year-old, so I totally understand the struggle. My wife suffers from paranoid schizophrenia. When I married her, I thought she had bipolar because the doctor I asked her to go to originally diagnosed her with it. It wasn't until several years later that we both learned she suffered from paranoid schizophrenia. It can be difficult and I don't regret it in the slightest. Even in her worst states, I don't regret it. I say this with our 10-year anniversary coming up on the 21st and she is currently inpatient in the hospital while I'm at home with our 2-year-old son. I'm here for her now and forever and always will be. She is on medications and most of the time she is good. I occasionally get woken up in the middle of night with her screaming that there is a bear at the end of the bed. I have had to learn to be extremely resilient, pretty much in every aspect of our lives. The amount of times I've come home from work and her arm is bleeding because her voices told her to cut herself and she couldn't get them to go away unless she did what they told her. I'm telling you that you'll want to panic in those situations, but you learn not to. You learn to calmly administer first aid. You don't get upset. You don't get angry. You just show her understanding and drive her to the hospital. The decision to have a child was a hard one we both made. She has been self-harm free for 3 years because of her desire to be better for our kid. We haven't had the easiest marriage, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. Like this video and this good boy will play you a nice song. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.